cash book, the ledger, and trial balance. The question provided can help us to prepare cash book, the ledger, and the trial balance. And the question is, use the details below to prepare a cash book, the ledger, and extract a trial balance of Westone Ventures for the month of March. And these are the transactions that took place in the month of March, from March 1st to March 30th. And so let's started business with cash £6,000 and in the bank £4 was available in the bank account of this business. So these two figures were invested into the business as capital. So in the cash book it will appear as capital in the particulars or description column. Now when cash and bank are mentioned together, it means 2-column cash book needs to be prepared. Why is it called 2 columns? Are in 2 columns, 2 columns, 2 columns, 2 columns. Either at the debit side, or the right hand side, which is the credit side. The debit side receives money, while the credit side make payments. So the debit side is receiving side and credit side is the giving side. The debit side, usually when money is invested into the business, it goes to the debit side, such as the capital that is used to start the business. So the capital, as mentioned in the first transaction, March 1, started business with cash 6,000 and in the bank account 4,000. It will be recorded in the debit side, which is the left hand side. So as you can see, March 1, capital 6,000 in the cash column and the bank column 4,000. So you can see that at the heading we have the name of the company, Westone Ventures, 2-column cash book, and we have right hand side and 5 at the right hand side. Particulars, folio, cash, bank. And the right hand side we also have date, particulars, folio, cash, and bank. So the same things are mentioned, but the difference is that the debit side receives money while the credit side pays out money or funds. So we have just mentioned March 1st, capital was invested, 6,000 in the office and 4,000 available in the bank account. Now let's go to the next date. The next date is March 3rd. Paid for office furniture by check, 400,400. This payment shows the money goes out of the business, and then the description is furniture. So let's go to the credit side, which is the right hand side. March 3rd, furniture 1,400 in the bank column because the check was issued out. So payment was made and the money is going out of the business. So the credit side records money going out of the business. We go to the next item, March 5, the 5th of March, bought cash 4,700. So bought goods, that is purchases were made. We see that in the credit side, March 5th on the date, particulars, purchases. Since it was bought with cash, is under cash column, as you can see by the indication of the cursor, 4,700. The next date is March 10, cash sales to date 6,500. Cash sales to date. So sales were made and cash was received. So when sales are made, cash will be money will be in cash. or in cash. In this case, it was cash sales. So we have March 10 on the debit side. The left hand side is the debit side. Sales 6,500 because it was cash sales. So it's recorded in the cash column. Next date is March 12. Bought goods on credit from LYG £7,000. Bought goods on credit. There is not recorded, there is not recorded, there is not recorded, there is no March 12 or entered in the cash book because these goods were bought on credit, and so it will not enter into the cash book because there was no payment that is made. So that reminds us that the cash book records goods that were bought or sold or transactions that involves payments, physical cash or cash made payments made by check or by electronic transfer. So payment has to be involved. That is one person is that is not entered into the cash book. So what do we do with March 12 transaction? Bought goods on credit from LYG. That will be recorded or entered in what is called the journal. In this case, purchases journal because it was bought. So we have purchases journal and it looks like this. So March 12, goods bought from LYG company, £7,000 worth of goods, and that will be transferred to the purchases account. So let's go to the next. It's March 15. March 15 sold goods and received check 5,600. So sales were made and check were received. So since we received the money, it goes to the debit side. So we have March 15 sales 5,600. Why in the bank column? Because we received check. So that means that the money will be received through the bank, and that is why it is entered in the bank column of the debit side. We go to number 25th, the date March 25th, sold goods and received cash 4,700. Goods were sold, and so money will be received when goods were sold. So that is why we entered in the debit side. March 12 sales 4,200 in cash, as mentioned in the. We have the next one. March 20th. I think we skipped that. March 20th said paid LYG by electronic transfer 5,200. Paid LYG by electronic transfer 5,200. Okay, so remember March 12 goods were bought from LYG worth 7,000, and now receiving money set to offset that debt. In this case, not all the money was paid. 5,200 was paid to LYG. So money is going out from Whetstone Ventures to LYG, and so we go to March 20th on the credit side, which is the right hand side. March 20th, 5,200 versus the bank, whether through any bank app or a POS terminal. That is why it is entered in the bank column, 5,200. Okay, so we have taken note of that part we skipped. Now we go to March entered, which has been entered, sold goods, and we've mentioned that. Now we go to March 28. Paid cash into bank 2,000. paid cash into bank £2,000. Now this money is not actually going out of the business because it is the same business fund that is just paid into the bank, because sometimes there may be excess money in the office and we want to reduce the amount in the office by paying some into the bank. So 2,000 was set aside and was paid into the bank. So the money is not actually going out of the business, but it's going account of the business. This is how it is indicated in the cash book. Let's go to March 28. March 28, this transaction is recorded both at the debit side and at the credit side. As you can see, March 28 is on the credit side. March 28 is also on the debit side. 2,000. So we show that at the credit side now, cash was paid into bank. So cash goes into bank column, and the letter C is written in the folio column to indicate that this amount is a contra entry. That is to say that this amount will be recorded twice, not only at the credit side but also at the debit side. So look at the debit side. March 28, bank 3,000. So the 2,000 is entered here in the cash column in the debit side, while in the credit side that same 2,000 is entered in the bank column because bank received the money, while the debit side is showing that bank received cash of 2,000. So since the money is not going out of the business, that is why it is recorded on both sides. It is called contra entry because it has cancelled each other. And so this particular transaction is called into what is called the ledger, which will be explained later as we move forward. So the last date we have is March 30th, paid rent by check. I'm sure you know where that should be entered. Correct, that should be at the credit side because rent payment is going out of the business. So 500 pounds by check. Rent was paid out, and that is 500. The use of the office was taken note of, and so 500 was issued out by means of check and is entered in the bank column. So we are through with all the transactions and want to see how we can add them up in the cash book. So in the cash book, at the debit side we have cash column and bank column. At the credit side we also have cash column and bank column. Let me quickly mention the purpose of the which is abbreviated FF. The folio column helps to make reference to transactions such as the contra entry on March 28. That C indicates that it's a contra entry, which we will explain later. The folio can also be used to enter invoice number or ledger number, any other important that is important. So let's move ahead by adding the figures. Now let's go to debit side, the cash column. First of all, we have capital of 6,000, sales 6,005, another sales on the 25th 4,200, sales on the 28th, another entry on the 28th 2,000. All these are added. When added, we have total of 18,700 in the cash column. Then we go to the bank capital 4,000, and we have 600, giving us a total of 9,600. So what we do is that we also compare the totals in the credit side. Let's look at the credit side now. The credit side is showing that we have just 4,700 here, 4,700 in the cash column, which means the 18,700, which is at the debit side, we are going to less 4,700 at the credit side. So 18,700 less 4,700, it will give us a balance of 14,000 as shown in the cash column. Then in the bank column, at the credit side, we have 1,400, 5,200, 2,000, and 500, which is the rent. When added together, it's going to give us 9,100. 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 items is going to give us 9,100. And remember, at the debit side, we have 9,600. So 9,600 less 9,100, total of what is in the bank column, we have going to have balance of 500. So the 500 total of 9,600 pounds. The same thing applies to the cash column. 4,700 when added with the balance of 14,000 give us 18,700, which harmonizes with what we have at the debit side, 18,700 and 96. Now these balances that we have, March 31st, balance carried down, the carried down. So this amount carried down will be taken to the next month. We show these are balances. Our balances are 14,000 in the cash column, and we also have 500 in the bank account. So two balances, 14,000 cash, 500 in the bank, and that goes to the next month, April 1, balance brought forward. BF stands for brought forward. So we are bringing 14,500 forward. And now that is the end of the cash book. The next question say we show all the items in the cash book that now be entered into the ledger account. This is how the ledger looks like. This is the ledger. B part question says the ledger. So we are going to take each item starting from capital. March 1st, capital, we have 6,000 and 4,000. So in the ledger, we are going to open capital account. Capital account, we still have the debit side and the credit side. So the ledger happens to be a principal book of accounts that records all transactions after the book of original entry, and cash book is one of such books. So after the cash book, we have the ledger. So each item or entries we have in the cash book will now be taken to the ledger. The ledger helps to fulfill the double entry principle. States that in the cash book, for instance, there will be a corresponding credit entry in the ledger account, which helps to complete the double entry. That means that a transaction must be recorded twice, one at the debit side and the other at the credit side, or vice versa. So the capital is found at each side of the when capital account is opened, the figures, the entries will now be in the credit side, which has fulfilled the double entry principle. What is found at the debit side will be taken to the credit side, and what is found in the credit side of the cash book or debit side purchases, they will now be in the debit side. So let us start. Capital account, we have March 1st cash for 6,000 and bank 4,000. So total capital invested was £10,000. On the credit side, as mentioned, debit side of the cash book. Now in the ledger, it is now found in the credit side. The next item we have is sales. Sales, we open sales accounts. We have how many sales? 6,005, 5,006, 4,002. So 3 items of sales will now go to the credit side of the ledger. So we prepare sales account, everything recorded at the credit side to fulfill the double entry principle. So we have 6,005, 5,006 in bank, and then cash of total of 16,300. So total sales for that month was 16,300. The next we have is furniture. Furniture is at the credit side of the cash book, and so it goes to the debit side, that's the left hand side of the ledger account. So when we open furniture account, that money check is reading at the debit side. March 3rd bank £1,400. Purchases account is also open. All the funds available at the credit side of the cash book are now taken to the debit side of the ledger. So when purchases account is open, we have the items recorded in the debit side. So we have cash 4,700, and remember another purchase that was made on credit was from LYG, 7,000. So the total purchases for that month, whether cash was involved or it was bought on credit, are entered into the purchases account. So the total purchases we have now is 11,700, and the balances are shown herein. Okay, we go to the next person. We have LYG. LYG found in the credit side of the cash book. Look at how it is entered in the creditor. So LYG, goods were bought from LYG March 12, purchases 7,000 are found in the purchases journal that we mentioned earlier. So that figure is now being taken. That figure, remember we first took it to the purchases account at the debit side. Now at the LYG account, it was of 7,000 was made, bought from LYG company. Meanwhile, payment was made to LYG on March 20th, which we now found at the debit side. March 20th bank, that is to say, check was issued to LYG worth 5,200, and so out of 7,000, Westone Ventures paid 5,200, which means there will be a balance of 1,800 still owed to LYG. So 1,800 now will now be the balance in LYG, as we can see here, 1,800 is the balance. Rent account was the last mentioned in the cash book, and so from the credit side it goes to the debit side. Debit side as found here. Having completed the ledger, use the balances of the trial balance. So all the balances in the ledger at the credit side will enter into the credit side of the trial balance, and all the entries found at the debit side of the ledger will go to the debit side of the trial balance. As you can see, this is the trial balance. Trial balance as at March 31st. Creditor. The first description or particulars we have is capital, total of 10,000 at the credit side. Sales, total of 16,003. So we are not doing any double entry principle again because it has been completed in the ledger. So what we do is just take the balances. The one found in the credit side goes to the credit side, and the one found on the debit side remains at the debit side of the trial balance. So furniture 1,400, purchases 11,700. Happens to be YG happens to be a creditor because that business or that company is still being owed 1,800. So a creditor of 1,800. Rent 500. Cash. Now this cash and bank we are not found in the ledger because the cash and bank has been completed in the cash book. Look at it. The balances we have in the cash book. We have balance of 14,000, which were taken to the following month. The following month happened to be April 1st. So balance brought forward 14,000, 14,000 in the cash column and 500 in the bank column. So these two figures, because the double entry has been completed here, this credit and the debit side is completed already, so we take it as it is to the debit side of the trial balance. 14,000, and in the bank account. So look at it. All these figures are added, the debit sides are added, giving us 28,100 pounds in the debit side. The same thing applies. The 10,000 of the capital, the 16,300, and the 1,800 of the creditor also amount to 28,100. So we show that the account is balanced. This is represented by the letter C in the folio column of the cash book. It is used to indicate that surplus cash in the office was paid into the bank or cash was withdrawn from bank for office use. Thus, entries are made on both sides of the account. It is called contra entry. Then it's explanation to the ledger, and then we have the trial balance, a list of balances extracted from the ledger to test the arithmetical accuracy of ledger postings. Now from the ledger we can as well prepare another statement which is called the profit and loss account or income statement, as well as the balance sheet. But that will be in our next lesson or discussion. We are going to see how we can use the information found in the trial balance to prepare a profit and loss account and then the balance sheet. So that is it for cash book, the trial balance using the remember to like, to comment and subscribe so that we can get more details or more information in any of our topics presented. That's it.